Thank you for taking the time and welcome. It's my first Signal. I've met some of you already. I'm Eamon Naeem. I'm product manager for the voice and video SDKs. And I hope by the end of this presentation, you get a good idea of what you can do with programmable voice and mobile VoIP. You'll see how Twilio simplifies embedding in-app calling. And last but not least, how contextual calling brings value to your service and to your customers. Just quickly, I will be going through the motions of putting together a VoIP, embedding VoIP calling into a fictitious online shopping app. I'll have some goodies at the end, GitHub goodies, where I, along with the team, did some coding and it was heaps of fun. But first, I want to zoom into contextual calling. I really want you to see this is not a buzz term, it's not the flavor of the month kind of thing, it's something that will bring value and you should get onto it now. I'll go over programmable voice, the architecture. I don't know how many of you have built apps or interested in building apps or have used programmable voice. I hope this demystifies, introduces you to the concepts that we have in programmable voice. And finally, just a quick summary and hope for some questions. I have some very competent and awesome engineers in the crowd that will help me out. Yes, you. Okay, let's see if this works. Yay. What's contextual calling? Let's start with that. I think the simplest definition is the ability to communicate what the call is about before the conversation starts. That's at the heart of it. So when the caller and callee are talking, they already know what they will be discussing. Think subject line in an email. You form a lot of context just by reading the subject line. If you don't have a subject, you probably won't even open the email. Another great example is perhaps caller ID. You do form a lot of context from caller ID. Phone rings. You look at it. Should I answer it now or not? With mobile VoIP, you really supercharge contextual calling. What if your phone rang like this, urgent, I can't find my keys, and I'm here. So you can make much better decisions with taking calls. So why do we need it? I want to talk about it from a contact center perspective. I know I had mum in there because this would apply to person-to-person calls just as much to contact center, but this is quite dear to my heart. I'm sure we've all been there before. You call your favorite service provider or someone that you need help from. You traverse a myriad of IVRs. Maybe you need to look up an order ID or God forbid, you have to enter your credit card details. Don't forget, options have changed, so you better listen carefully. And so with mobile VoIP, you can bypass all that. Collect this information before the call. Spare the user from having to experience very inefficient workflow. Another one, I quite often want to call in and I just want to talk to the right person. And of course, this is the runaround scenario. So you get transferred from one person to the other, to the other, to the other. Maybe you get your problem solved. Again, with mobile VoIP, collect this information up front, process it, maybe some AI, I don't know, and connect that customer directly to the right person. I also found this GIF, copyright to Google search. It turns out it's not just the customers that are having a bad time with this workflow. It is an end-to-end problem. And in the contact center, it's a frustrated customer calling in. They just want to have their problem solved. With mobile VoIP, you can create a much more efficient workflow. Let's see. On a more serious note, I don't know how it is outside of the US, but I've just come to realize it's a bit of an epidemic with robocalls. I wanted to mention this in the context of mobile VoIP because robocalling and mobile VoIP don't exist. So when you do implement mobile VoIP, a trust relationship is established with the app that the customer or the agent downloads. It cannot be reached by a robocall. It's as simple as that. For me, it's at such a level that I do not answer my phone if I don't recognize the phone number. And I'm taking a risk that it is an important call that I'm missing simply because of the number of robocalls that we get. With mobile VoIP, as you saw, you get the caller ID, you probably can communicate a subject of some sort, so you have a very good indication of the call. You can make a much better decision about picking up the call. Another one even more serious is call spoofing. For those that don't know, call spoofing is someone pretending to be someone else. It turns out the PSTN networks made an assumption that the only person that can access PSTN are the ones that are allowed to do it, and forgot that through the internet age, anyone can get access into the PSTN network, so it's quite easy to spoof calls. And here you have very bad people trying to get your private information that you shouldn't be giving. With mobile VoIP, that's not a problem. Again, the trust relationship is established by downloading that app, calling that app. There's no robocalls, there's no call spoofing. I mentioned it's not something, it's not a buzzword. Our friends at Uber implemented mobile VoIP and have it today. It's under the free call. You can try it out. And their use case, as you know, it's rider to driver. So they can communicate context. They know what the trip is about. I don't have to enter a ride ID. I don't have to traverse an IVR. I don't have to guess that it's the rider calling. I know it's Uber. And so mobile data, where it's at today, availability, prices, 5G being rolled out, this is something to jump on now. Mobile VoIP does solve a lot of problems. I spoke a little bit about this fictitious app. This is actually a true product. It's an eggplant sauce bottle, and it is $25.99. I don't know who would buy that. But say I have a problem with this order. With Twilio's mobile VoIP, I could implement something like this. So instead of having to find the order ID or an email that has this contact information, maybe the website, it's all in-app. Use Programmable Voice SDKs to do this. It's a bunch of API, a handful, right? Handful. Abstracts away all the complexities behind building VoIP stacks. And this one is what I really like, delighting the user with technology. There's no context switching. You don't go to the phone app, turn the loudspeaker on, maybe need to DTMF keypad. It's all in-app. You can build beautiful apps that get the job done. And finally, as mentioned, this is programmable voice. You do have access to recording. You do have access to the PSTN. It's not something on the side that Twilio has built. Let's see, what's this? I wanted to mention some use cases just to get some creativity juices running. I like the idea of mobilizing agents and customers. I hardly ever go to the desktop nowadays to do my personal chores. It's all from the mobile. I would love to see every service I use have an amazing app and give me an amazing experience. Agents, mobilizing agents, I've been talking about that for a while. Now is the time to do it. We have mobile VoIP. An interesting one, we've been talking about streams and so forth. With mobile VoIP, you do have direct access to streams. A colleague of mine pulled me up and said, but we don't have it on Android. And I told him, we will have it soon. What can you do with audio streams? You don't get them in GSM. What you could do is things like live transcription, on-device recording, and the other way around. You could perhaps set up some templates where to play out, so you can create a lot more efficient workflows. Already mentioned the features. That's the third time, I think, I just realized, but it is Twilio Programmable Voice. utilize the features there. Ask, how do we do this? And let's walk through programmable voice. I have Alice. She's bought an eggplant sauce bottle and she wants some help. So what do we need? A TWIML app, a call orchestrator, and we need an access token. So when Alice taps that call button, you use the SDK to connect to the TWIML app. And you say, hey, place this call, it's Alice, and order ID 1234. The TWIML app will ask the call orchestrator, what do you want me to do with this call? You do some logic crunching, and you respond with, please connect Alice to Agent Bob and tell him it's order ID 1234. And so in this case, you're breaking out to a soft client. It's something that's using the Twilio SDKs. You could break out to the PSTN or whatever else you want to break out to. And so the TWIML app will connect Agent Bob and Alice will talk, and they'll live happily ever after. And here I introduced three concepts: TWIML app, call orchestrator, and access token. I want to talk about the TWIML app and the call orchestrator as they go hand in hand. One is really meaningless without the other. But first, I want to give a little bit of history about TWIML apps. They were first introduced late in the 19th century. It's not a spelling mistake, fact-checked. They required cables, phone plugs, and jacks. And so they're also known as operators. And so the caller would call in and say, hey, operator, I've got order ID 1234. Can you connect me to someone that can help me? And so the operator would look up order ID 1234. He or she will find Agent Bob and plug him in. They're connected. Fast forward to 2019. We found it doesn't scale. And so we introduced TWIML app. Two things have changed. We don't use cables and plugs, and we use XML as instructions. We've separated the hands from the brain. And so the hands need to know where the brain is. So TWIML app is nothing but a collection of URLs that point to who can make a decision about making the call or where to break out to. And so when Alice calls in, she's actually calling into a TWIML application. That's the operator. The operator will ask, what should I do with that? As you saw before, we break out to Agent Bob. We tell him it's order ID 1234. Connect to Agent Bob. So, how do we know which TWIML app, and how do we know it's Alice? Glad you asked. This is access tokens. It's also not a new concept. You want to get on the train, you want to go to the movies, you buy a ticket, you go do it. And so we've moved away from paper tokens and we've gone for RFC 7519. It's JSON Web Tokens, JWTs. And from the RFC, let me remember, I did practice this. They're URL safe means of transferring claims between two parties. What does that mean? URL safe, it's base64 encoded. Claims, just a JSON document of name value pairs. So, okay, what's so secure about that? It's not secure, it's base64 encoded. And so any security people in the crowd will say, you need to sign it. And so when you sign a JSON document, you're sure of two things. You know who signed it, you know the contents have not been tampered with. And so that's how we achieve security when it comes to breaking into Twilios. Other things we include in the token is who the user is. So is it Alice or Agent Bob? And what can they do? Can they make an outbound call or not? Can they receive calls? Other things we do from a security perspective is we apply a maximum TTL of 24 hours. You can choose something less. Quite often I get asked, what should I set it to? It's usually a balance between maximum security versus usability. So maximum security is you create it when you need it for the amount of time that you need it for. Usability is when someone taps that call button, you don't want them to wait for you to fetch an access token and make the call. You want much more, you need faster access. The other thing I wanted to mention about access tokens is create them on the back end, never ever create them in the app. They do use private keys. This is a best practice. So just quickly, the ingredients to creating access tokens are your account SID, API keys, and it's a key secret. And this is the TWIML app here that we include in the access token. Mention the identity. For the function that creates this, you can read the RFC and create the access token, or you can use the Twilio helper library that comes in various languages, crunch it up, and send it across to the app. Quick recap. We lost a bit of time getting some of this set up, so I'll fly through this. Access token, app server, TWIML app, and let Twilio connect Alice to Agent Bob. Quickly on the SDKs, iOS and Android. We try and do N to N-2 on iOS. Android, we support API level 16 onwards. Media Engine is WebRTC. If you're not familiar with WebRTC, it's a great initiative. It is a standard. We use Google's implementation. What it means is we get great interop with browsers. And you get a lot of built-in connectivity and so forth. On the codec side, we've got Opus and G711. Opus, very good for mobile data and operating in those conditions. G711, not very good. Just a quick slide on comparing codecs. You can see G711 at 64 kilobits per second is just below narrowband. You would need around about 10 kilobits for Opus to achieve a similar quality. TLS for signaling, SRTP for the media, and size-wise about 3 to 4 megabytes, depending on architecture. So second last slide. Why use VoIP? We spoke about building efficient workflows. Reduce anxiety, don't stress customers. With mobile VoIP, you can achieve these things. We spoke about trust, robocalls, call spoofing. This is something not in the mobile VoIP world. We spoke about delighting your users with technology. Build beautiful apps that your customers will come back to. And finally, about Twilio, don't reinvent. VoIP is a massive stack. It's a lot of technologies, NAT traversals, firewalls, codecs, coding, you name it. It's a lot of stuff out there that you would need to do in order to create a VoIP stack. This is the last slide, not really, because you can, if you go to this, I hope it's public now, it includes this application, iOS application, with the calling into Agent Bob. As you can see, on the right-hand side, Agent Bob receives a call from Alice with order ID 1234. I've included the Twilio function access token as examples how you would create an access token using Twilio functions. And I've also included the call orchestrator as a TWIML bin. Use whatever's left of today, maybe tomorrow, to play around, get in touch, we can help you out. Thank you. Do we have time for questions?
With this, I just want to verify that you get the trust because the person is making the call from the mobile app, right? So
correct.
That is implicit. So
correct.
That could also be its only downside, right? Because sometimes people don't want to go through the hassles of putting on another app, right?
Correct. And this is where if you build enough features in the app so it's compelling to come to it, that's the key to it. So not only they won't be getting robocalls and all this kind of stuff, they will get better information in the app, and plus they can also call. You can look at mobile data whether it's more expensive or less expensive. All these things you would need to compare with the native dialing experience.
And when somebody's calling me as an end user, though, it doesn't call through the app, does it? Or does it?
It is the app. So you need the app for mobile VoIP.
The app? Okay.
It's over the top, OTT, if you. I can't hear you, Jason.
On your first slide,
Yeah.
iOS content screen with a map in the middle of the
Right, got it. So that was an example of something you could render yourself, not CallKit. CallKit does not give you that. Yes, that would be an in-app screen rather than CallKit. CallKit does not provide that today. Very observant.
So with a PSTN inbound call, let's say you wanted to handle business logic
Yep.
for which of your agents would receive the call on the app that you build, how would you insert that business logic? Would that be just server side, or what handles really triggering those call kit?
No, it's a very, very good question. As soon as you come in from the PSTN, you're bound with what the PSTN gives you, and you have to go back to the archaic DTMF. If it's the input you put in that way. There's no other way. But the logic would still exist on your server, and you can break out to wherever you want. So maybe you build in, once you've collected the information through DTMF, you can pass it on to the app. So you can still pass context out to the VoIP application. I'm sorry? Do we have a mic or? Yes, we have client.js as well that has the same functionality. You can pass context to it. You can get context from it.
So this is a shell app that you provide.
Yes, it's
So that's a shell app.
It's an app with hard-coded background, but what we've added is the dialer. The dialer is live and it works. Both the ringing, so when you're actually placing, and then when you're in a call, you get a second screen. So both of these are available in this
It
GitHub.
says iOS. Do you have a version for Android?
Just iOS today. This is a signal. It's a demo. It's a demo, that's all. Okay, I think
question.
that's all we have.